So I'm glad that we can communicate via the internet. I'm glad that I'm able to share with you some words from some thoughts from the Word of God as we approach this very, very important holiday. Not a holiday, but it's a holiday. It's a time of celebration. I call this message a time of celebration. And if you can see this is the title of today's sermon, a time of celebration. So, what are we celebrating, and why are we celebrating? Now, it happened that the story of Esther is one of the most beautiful stories in the Bible. In addition to the traditional feasts that we have in outlined in the book of Leviticus, something happened when the children of Israel were in the diaspora after the Babylonian captivity. Many of the Jews remain in Babylon. You remember that even during the time of Yeshua and Talmudic times, Babylon was a city with many, many, many Jews. But not everybody loved the Jews. And we know that anti-Semitism has been around for many years. So this special celebration is when we remember events that took place. We call it Purim. And the word Purim means lots. It's because they cast lots on a specific date when Haman, and let me just share with you a little bit of the story. I wasn't going to tell the story because we were going to have the children's program, so we would have been alive. Not live, alive we are, but live at the congregation. So let me just briefly summarize the story. It happened during the King Xerxes, Ahasuerus is called in the Bible, the son of King Darius, who allowed the children of Israel to return to the land of Israel after the Babylonian captivity. But many, many Jewish people remain in Babylon. We know that there was a strong Jewish community, even until recently, in what was Iraq. At that time, it was the greatest empire in the world. And the story goes that the King Xerxes threw a party, a beautiful party, and he being the king of 127 provinces, going all the way from Greece all the way to India. And he threw parties, and parties, he welcomed people, governors from, said 127 people. But as the party lasted for 7 days and things were getting bored. And so the king decided, okay, we don't have any more entertainment. Why don't you just, I'll show off my wife. She's a beautiful woman. So she called his wife, one of the many wives that he had, but this one was a queen. Vasti was her name. But she said, I'm not going to go. I'm not a showpiece. So that did not please the king because he was the all-powerful, almighty king. So the king said, you know what? If people know that you have not obeyed me, people in the whole empire are going to start rebelling against their husbands. So he decided to depose her. And as time went by, he was advised to find another wife. And so the order was proclaimed all over the world, his empire, to find a beautiful woman. And many were prepared, but among them was a little Jewish girl, or a young Jewish girl, whose name was Esther. And Esther, who was a Jew, and Esther was raised by her uncle Mordechai. And he looks at all the women, and he loves Esther. He falls in love, but being a beautiful woman, and he decides to marry her. But there's another part of the story is that there was a plot against the king Xerxes. Ahasuerus is called in the Bible. But Mordecai heard of this plot. So he warns the king, there's somebody who wants to kill you. So the king was able to avoid the plot against him. And it was recorded in the books. So one day, after time has gone by, he appoints as what we call a prime minister, a man called Haman. And Haman went around, a proud man, I'm the prime minister, everybody has to bow before me. And the Jew, Mordechai, who loved the Lord, he was a Jew who lived in the city of Susa, who was the capital of the Medo-Persian Empire, and around the year 480, just about 480, he was upset. So who's the Jew who doesn't bow before me? And Mordechai would not bow before anyone except God. So he says, I hate this guy. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to find a way to kill him and all his people. Who are these Jews who don't want to, who have their own laws, who don't want to worship us? So he devised a plan. And he cast lots, and he was supreme, and he was the prime minister. And the king didn't care about many details, so he just gave him the signature, and they cast lots. And the word Purim means lots, or Pur means lot. They cast lots, and the law was that on a certain day, all the Jews in the empire were going to be killed. Not a pretty picture. So, to make things even worse, one day the king cannot sleep, and he says, okay, I can sleep. They had no TV, no radio, so I'm going to have somebody read the chronicles of what happened. So one night, while he's trying to sleep, when he couldn't sleep, he's read the chronicles, and somebody reads to him that the Mordecai one day saved his life. And so he says, okay, did we do anything for him? Did we pay him homage? And said, well, nothing was done. So he said, okay, call Haman. Haman was the prime minister. Haman, I want to do something. Get the best horse, get the best clothes, and we're going to write a person all around through the city, and everybody will honor him. And Haman was like, whoa, it's me. I'm going to be so happy. And when the day came, it wasn't him. It was Mordecai. So he was furious. So his wife tells him, you know what? You hate him so much. Why don't you build gallows and we just hang? So they built gallows, and in order for one day, in the day when they cast the law in which all the Jews were going to be killed, Mordecai was going to be hanging there. Now, somehow, King Esther knows about this. Mordecai knows about this, and he tells Esther, Esther, you've been chosen by God for a time like this. And that's why the beautiful song by Marty Goetz, one of the beautiful things about the book of Esther. And by the way, to get the whole story, you got to read it. It takes about 10 minutes to read the whole book of Esther. You're there after Ezra and Nehemiah, because it happened during the time when the Jews were in Babylon. We'll read it. I can't go into every detail. But the story goes that King Esther could not, even though she was the queen, she could not stand before the king before being invited. So she says, I'm going to go. I'm going to tell the king what's happening. And if I die, I die. So he goes before the king, and she plots something. She has a banquet, and she brings over, said, king says, I'm going to give everything, half my kingdom if you want it. She said, no, just come, I'm going to set up a banquet. And he sets a banquet and says, I'm going to bring Haman as well. So they set up a banquet, and the king said, okay, here's the banquet. What do you want? So, well, come again tomorrow, we have another banquet. And when the following day, when the banquet comes, he says, me and my people are going to be killed. Because the king didn't know that she was Jewish. She had kept the secret because her uncle Mordecai said, keep the secret. So the story goes that finally, the king said, well, I sent a decree that on a certain day, Haman wrote this letter, and I put my seal on it, and it can't be unwritten. Whatever I said, it said. And the king, Esther, says, you know what? I'm going to die because my people die. I'm one of them. So king said, I cannot undo what it was done, but I'm going to send a letter to everyone around the kingdom that on the day in which I commanded everybody to be killed, because I was poorly instructed and advised by Haman that the Jews should defend themselves. So he sent writers. Now, in the meantime, she has another banquet, and she realizes, he tells the king, this is what happened. This is what Haman is doing. He said, how can he do such a thing? Well, he did it. You were not aware of that, but he did it. So when he realizes, no, this has got to be undone. And then Haman pleads for his life, and the king looks at Haman, is begging and getting too close to the queen. He said, what are you doing in my house? You're getting too close to the queen. So he takes Haman, and Haman ends up being hanged in the gallows. Now, The story of Purim is a story of preservation, a story of protection. What Mordecai said, and this is when we celebrate that, and this is why we celebrate Purim. Now, let me just go to briefly share with you some of the points. And this is what at the end of the book of Esther reads. And if you have your Bibles, you can follow it. Mordecai, remember Mordecai was actually Esther's uncle or cousin. Mordecai recorded these events, and he sent letters to all the Jews throughout the provinces of King Xerxes, near and far, to have them celebrate the 14 and 15 days of the month of Adar annually, at the time when the Jews got relief from their enemies, and as a month when their sorrow was turned into joy, and their mourning into a day of celebration. He wrote them to observe the days as the days of feasting and joy, and giving presents and food, and other things to the poor. So this is what we read. Now, the question that we have here before is, why do we celebrate Purim? And let me just mention a few things about this. Now, Purim is not one of the major holidays, but it is a holiday. It's a time when we rejoice, and it is something in the Jewish communities that is observed throughout the world. Every community, every part of the world will celebrate Purim. It's a feast. It's not mentioned in Leviticus. It's not mentioned in the Bible because it happened in the intertestamental period. But it is a major event. It is a major event because, again, people tried to kill us, and God intervened. But wait, said David, you say that God intervenes, but we have a problem here. And what is the problem? The problem is that there is no mention of the book of Esther in the Bible. So the question is, why is the book of Esther in the Bible? And the answer to this is that I believe that although the name of God in every detail shows God's intervention. Now, why is the book of Esther included in the Bible? It's the only book in the whole Bible that does not have the name God. So can there be a book in the Bible in which the name of God is not included? Well, here we have. You have the book of Esther. Now, we don't have to have the name of God written there in order to see the hand of God. We see a man, a horrible man, Haman, like there's always been horrible people who try to destroy. But this happened 3,000 years ago. But the people of Israel, the Israelites, you and me are still here. And those who are not Jewish, who have been grafted in. We are here because there is an Israel. Because we see the hand of God in every detail. Now, what were the chances? Okay, let's go. If you don't see the hand of God in this, I don't know where do you see it. And again, I was very quick in telling the story. But remember the main character, King Xerxes, or Ahasuerus is called here. The Medo-Persian Empire. He was the son of King Darius. The king, his prime minister, Haman, who tried to destroy the Jews. A righteous, pious man called Mordecai, and his cousin, Esther. These four characters, they play an important role. And in each one, now, you remember this story? What were the chances that Mordecai would have been around when he would have heard a plot to kill the king? Coincidence? You call it coincidence. I say that God has a plan. I believe that God put Mordecai in the right place at the right time, so he heard a plot against the Jews. I'm sorry, the first plot was against the king. Now, what were the chances that a king who had everything. What were the chances that the queen would not obey the king, the Queen Vashti, when the king was celebrating a banquet and he said, invite the queen, have her come over. And she said, no, I'm not going to go. I'm not your trophy queen. So what were the chances that the queen would disobey the most powerful man on the world? That when the king commanded something, it would happen. What were the chances that of all the thousands and thousands, and perhaps hundreds of thousands, because remember, the Medo-Persian Empire went all the way from Greece, but today Turkey, all the way to India. And among all the beautiful ladies, virgins of the kingdom, he would have picked one, a Jewish girl. Of course, he gave her beauty, and she was beautiful. Hadassah is her Hebrew name. What were the chances that all the women in the world, he would have picked this Jewish girl? What were the chances that the king could not sleep one night? And in order, instead of taking sleeping pills, he had something read. And what were the chances that he would have, at that time, years later, he would reward Mordecai, which irritated Haman because he wanted all the praise and all the honor. What were the chances that the king would allow Queen Esther to walk into the chamber of the king or the royal court or the throne before her invitation? And one of the most beautiful thing, that we find is that Esther says, well, I'm going to go without invitation. And if I die, I die. I got to die anyway. Or what are the chances that the king would say, yes, come in, although you're not invited? But he extended the invitation and Esther walked in. Or what are the chances? Coincidence? What were the chances that this girl put everything at risk? Her reputation, her place of honor. When Mordecai told her cousin, this is going to happen. A decree has been issued for all of us to be killed on a specific day. So you got to do this. Now, it's interesting what it says, because Mordecai says, if you remain silent, and I'm reading in Esther chapter 4:14, if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to a royal position for such a time like this? Coincidence? It was a tough assignment for Esther. It was a challenge. So she devised this plan, and this plan worked out. Now, we see the hand of God in every detail. And what we see here is that there are Hamans in history who always try to destroy. Anti-Semitism is on the rise. I don't know if you're aware, but recently, I think it was in Michigan, that a man was caught trying to kill Jewish officials in the state of Illinois. And they were always, just a generation ago, somebody tried to destroy the Jews forever. That's the Holocaust. Today, millions of Arabs, Muslims are trying to destroy the very existence of the state of Israel. Who's in control? The book of Esther doesn't mention God, but shows the hand of God in every detail. Because the Bible says that he who watched, different from King Ahasuerus who couldn't sleep, well, our God does not sleep either. He who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. There is a God who's watching Israel. And do we celebrate? Of course we celebrate. How can we not celebrate? And do you remember what I read in the very beginning? that it was recorded. It was recorded that we should celebrate the deliverance. And when the day came for the Jews to be destroyed, they defended themselves. They defended themselves to the point that they were allowed to overcome their enemies. And those who tried to hang the Jews and kill them get hanged themselves. So it's a day to remember. We celebrate, we rejoice. Not only that, we are commanded to celebrate for 2 days. Now, next is Purim starts on Monday night and go day for 2 days. Lucky you, because on the very same day I'm having surgery. Okay, nothing serious, just hip replacement surgery, but I will be celebrating Purim from a hospital bed. I hope you celebrated well. And we have foods, and we send greetings. You know, it was commanded. You remember at the very beginning that that we read, and see, we can go back to the decree that we read at the very beginning, and to remember what happened. This is what Mordecai wrote. And let me read it again. Mordecai recorded these events, and he sent letters to all the Jews throughout the provinces of King Xerxes, near and far, to have them celebrate. And that's what we do. We're commanded to celebrate. This is a joyful occasion. This is indeed not only a holiday, but a holiday. Celebrate the 14th and 15th of the month of Adar annually, as the time when the Jews got relief from their enemies, and as the month when their sorrow was turning to joy, and their mourning into a day of celebration. He wrote them to observe these days as days of feasting and joy, and giving presents of food to one another. And again, we see the hand of God in every detail. Now, what do we learn from this? There are many things that we learn. First of all, it's a time to rejoice. It's a time to rejoice. And we have this famous saying that I'm going to repeat it again. It says that the Jewish holidays can be summarized in the following way: somebody tried to kill us, the Lord save us, let's eat. So this is a time when we're commanded to celebrate, to eat. And you know that one of the things that we eat is called hamantash or haman tashem. They're little pastries made in triangles. And we celebrate eating delicious food. And we give gifts. This is a time when we are commanded to rejoice, to celebrate. Not only now, but throughout the generations. And one of the ways in which we know whether a Jewish community is a Jewish community is because they have not stopped celebrating Purim. Sometimes when they wanted to find out if the certain community in certain country was truly Jewish, the question is whether you celebrate a Passover. The question is whether you celebrate Purim, because of the commandment to celebrate and rejoice in Purim. Now, we eat this pastry. Haman tashem is a beautiful triangle cookie. It's a story, and this is not a true story, okay? This is a story somebody made up, most likely. It says that one day, Adolf Hitler had a gathering of people, and he told the crowd, or the people who were listening there, that he was tired of the Jews, and he was going to bring about what is called the final solution, the destruction of all the Jewish people. And while he was saying that, somebody was laughing. So while Hitler is saying that he's going to destroy the Jews, somebody's laughing. So he asked this guy, "Why are you laughing? I'm talking about the destruction of the entire Jewish people. Why are you laughing?" And the guy said, "You know what, Mr. Hitler? Again, this probably this story is not true, okay? But this is how the story goes. So this Jew who was laughing while Hitler was telling of the destruction says, Hitler asked him, why are you laughing? Well, I'm going to tell you why I'm laughing, because I am a Jew. I am a Jew. Pharaoh tried to kill us 3,000 years ago. He perished. And today, we celebrate Passover eating matzah. Haman, 2,500 years ago, tried to kill us. And we celebrate eating Haman Tishen, pastries. I'm just laughing, What kind of food are we going to eat when you are going to be destroyed? God always turns things his way. So, what do we learn from this? I believe that there are a few lessons that we can learn from here. And let me just go to the final thoughts that I have in these regards. What lessons do we learn from Purim? First lesson is God is faithful to his promise. He promised that no nation will rise. Remember what he said to Abraham? I will bless whom you bless, and I will curse whom you curse. And although there have been many pharaohs, many Hamans, Hitlers, and people on the rise who want to kill their imams, their ayatollahs, there are people who want to destroy, but God is faithful to his promise. I will bless whom you bless, and he who watches Israel neither slumbers nor sleep. First lesson, that God is faithful to his promise. Second, God is active at all the time. We don't have to have the name of God written in the book of Esther to see the hand of God in every detail. God is active, although we may not see it plainly. God is moving the strings of history. We are all instruments in God's hands. God continues to use human beings in order to bring about his message. Did he need Esther? No. God could have done it himself. Did he need Mordecai? No, he could have done it himself. But God continues to use. You know what the Apostle Paul says? God continues to use you and me in order to bring his message of redemption and salvation to everybody. You remember what Paul says in the letter to the Romans? How can they believe in the one whom they haven't heard? And how can they hear if nobody preaches? Perhaps you and me have been chosen for a time like this, when we see anti-Semitism on the rise. I believe that we should be on guard. There are always Hamas trying to destroy the people of Israel. And this is what Mordecai told Esther. For if you remain silent this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your family's father will perish. And who knows, but you have come to a royal position for such a time like this. Perhaps now you are part of this congregation for such a time like this. We know that the end is near. I believe that the second coming of Yeshua is near. And there are many people, many of our Jewish people need to hear the gospel. Perhaps you have been called to be part of the Kehillat, of the ministry of chosen people, or to put a Jewish person on your way for such a time like this. We should be on guard. We should be on guard. Because if we don't do it, who will do it? So, what's the next thing? God used these incidents to bring people to his knowledge. It's interesting because we says here that many people, and this is in that book of Esther, chapter 8, verse 17, it says, and many people of other nationalities became Jewish. Whoa! There was an evangelistic outreach. God turning a calamity into one of the greatest Jewish revivals. Many, many people came to faith in the God of Israel because of this incident. God can use every incident in order to bring people to him. Perhaps, it happened that, I'm sorry to getting personal, I had to run some AKGs and some tests before my surgery next week. And it happened that the only doctor who was available to run this test right before was Jewish. And so I got to talk with him. I went, he called me yesterday, gave me the results of all the stress tests and the cardiovascular test. And he couldn't stop talking because I gave him a book that I've written, A Brief History of the Jewish People. And instead of talking about my health and whether I'm going to have surgery on Tuesday, he gives me the green light, he was talking about the book and how the Jewish people are great. Guess what? God is using even the opportunity of me having to go to a Jewish doctor prior to my surgery, and I was able to share with him that I am a Jew who believes in Jesus. And he got so excited. Not only I gave him a book, but he told me I got through Amazon 2 books, one for my daughter and one for my son. God uses every opportunity. God uses every incident. Who knows? You may run across somebody you never thought. God can use you for such a time like this. And many people, many nationalities became Jews like this. Now, my answer is, if not now, when are you going to do it? If not you, who's going to do it? Perhaps the Lord has called you to share the gospel of Yeshua the Messiah for such a time like this. Our Jewish nation is being persecuted, is being threatened, but we rejoice because we have been called to be part of his people. Have fun, have humandash, rejoice. This is a time when God commanded, eat, let's be happy. I'm with you. Thank you, Jorge, for allowing me to share these thoughts.
Thank you, David. That's a wonderful, wonderful, exciting sermon, story, and encouragement to many of us, whatever time you're going through, difficult time or not. It's a command to rejoice. It's not, well, just when you feel okay or when everything's fine. No, it says rejoice during this time. So thank you for that reminder. And eat all the good stuff that you can. We had prepared, someone in our congregation prepared lots of hamantashen to share, but you couldn't do it today. So hopefully they're still good next week. If not, we'll have to make some new ones. But during the week, have some, and next week we'll rejoice having a celebration as well. But thank you for that tremendous way to bring this story to life, and to challenge us not to forget that God can use us and wants to use us as well to share God's word, God's message to all people around us, to the Jew first, and also to those that are non-Jews. Thank you again.